You're listening to the Sort Yourself Out podcast, and today I've got a special guest joining me to discuss how we can avoid the pitfalls on the road to happiness. I'm your host, Janine Hunt, natural health therapist for over 30 years, hypnotherapist, lifelong learner, and student of the Ageless Wisdom. Here on the Sort Yourself Out podcast and in my Better Than Happy Zone membership, I teach powerful top-down techniques and practices so that you can master your mind and emotions, free yourself of what's holding you back, expand your consciousness, and nourish your soul. So let's get started. Well, hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a special guest joining me today, and we are going to be digging deep into happiness, what makes us happy, and also what doesn't. My guest is Amy Powell, and Amy is a transformation coach and happiness guide. She helps people to connect more deeply with their inner self and their true goals to achieve fulfillment and live out the life of their dreams. So let's get started on my conversation with Amy. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Janine, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history and how you came to be a happiness coach?
Yes. So similar to you, I am very entrenched in this idea of helping people lead happier, more joyful, more content lives, really finding themselves and looking within to explore what that happiness means to them, what their dream life is, what their ideal life is, and helping them achieve that. And so I call myself a transformation coach and a happiness guide, guiding people towards their idea of happiness. And why I'm doing the work I am, 6 years ago, I was living in San Francisco. I was a perfect product of consumer culture. I had no boundaries in my life. I really, looking back, I had no self-respect, no self-trust. And I was working a job that burned me out. So that all meant that I was so disconnected from myself. I was disconnected from what true friendship meant. I was seeking friendships that were more flashy and fun and kind of these ideals that I had learned from society. I was in debt. I was spending all my money on things that I was told would bring me happiness from looking at ads. And because I was so unhappy, I was going out almost every night. I was drinking every night. I was socializing way more than I wanted to. And I had this idea that I was really hoping for happiness. I felt like I was doing all of the right things by what I had been conditioned, what society was telling me was quote unquote right and quote unquote being successful. And I was just hoping that my dream life would come to me, that this idea of happiness, that I would soon achieve it just by continuing this unhappy spiral that I was on. And it wasn't until one morning I woke up and I was supposed to go to work and my soul was empty. I could just feel this sinking feeling of, again, just so disconnected to myself, not wanting to get up, not wanting to, really being hopeless that I'd been doing all these things all my life, and I was so far away from this idea of happiness. So in that moment, I decided to first stop feeling sorry for myself and realize that I was making a choice to not act on what I needed. And so in that moment, I decided, okay, I'm going to start acting by doing things opposite and see if that works. Because whatever I was doing in that current moment, I was 30 at the time. So whatever I had been doing for the last 30 years was not working. So I was going to do the opposite and see how that treated me. So I committed to doing a no buy challenge, which was so hard. And it was such a challenge because I was in a place where after work, I was feeling I had really no purpose. I was feeling depleted. So I would go shopping and I would go spend money, and that made me happy in that quick moment. And, I was seeing these ads and I was seeing people that looked happy, and I didn't have the things they did. So maybe if I had the things they did, then I would be a glimpse of that happiness too. So in this no buy challenge, I challenged myself for 6 months to not buy anything non-essential. So I was paying my rent, I was paying my bills, I was going to the grocery store and getting groceries, but I wasn't going out and doing the extravagant brunches and dinners that I really did not need to be doing. It was just, that did not really make me happy. It was just more about being out and being seen and feeling validated. So really kind of during that time, looking more within myself, not spending money just for the sake of spending money, but keeping that money so I could then invest in myself. So during that 6 months of not buying, so only buying essentials, I was using that money, saving, getting myself out of debt, and second, investing in classes. And I hired a coach, and I went to different events and listened to panels, read books. I really started to get curious around who was living and leading these happy lives, and what were they doing to bring that and cultivate into their life for themselves. And that investment in myself, that 6 months, really allowed me to see happiness is attainable. You make the choice around that idea. And in that 6 months, really acquired these tools then to propel myself to create that happy dream life for myself.
Nice. Now, we quickly discovered when we talked before that we have a shared interest when it comes to what makes us happy, or more accurately, what robs us of our happiness. And you've already touched on it somewhat. But it is just something that is so prevalent today. And this is the materialistic society and consumerism and advertising. So how might these things lead us to be less happy?
I live in California. I live in Los Angeles. And like I said, I was in San Francisco before. So I've been in California most of my life, and really influenced by American culture. And I know in Europe is a bit different. I feel like maybe we're more fueled by that consumerism. However, it is everywhere. So that consumerism, and when I talk about this, I think about it as a constant need for us to want the next best thing, or want something that we don't have. So it's this idea, and really that idea of consumerism, very closely linked with capitalism, of that idea that we need to run the economy. And so people need to be buying things, right? To fuel that, to perpetuate that, we're taught and conditioned to always want more. And our society has really embraced this idea and accepts that external things give us value, give us recognition that we seek, give us security, success, and really identify as giving us worthiness. And so when we're conditioned to continue wanting things outside of ourselves, then we will perpetually be unhappy because we don't have all of those things. It's interesting because we're not taught to be grateful for what we have. And so that's one of the biggest shifts that I saw, is I had been wanting so much, but I couldn't, so I had maybe gone to the store. I was shopping at Zara a lot at that time. And I would go to the store, I would buy a sweater, and it made me happy. I felt good, walking home, holding the bag, feeling like, oh, cool, I could buy things. People saw me. That proved my worth somehow to me. And then I got home, and the next day I either would look at my bank account and say, oh my gosh, I'm now further in debt. Or I would forget that I had made that purchase, and I just wanted another sweater. I just wanted the next, oh, cool, look at that new jacket that's in an ad that I see. Oh, I don't have that, I want that. instead of saying, oh, but I spent my hard-earned money on this sweater, and being really thankful for that sweater, there was a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. And I see this in our culture so much, that idea, and I'll, kind of go back of that idea of consumerism is always wanting, climbing the ladder at work. You get a promotion, you have, pay increase, perhaps more responsibility. And then, okay, from there, 6 months later, you're already wanting to go to the next tier, instead of just really feeling into your new position, really, connecting with your employees, really being thankful for where you are and what you've achieved. And that also goes back to celebrating our wins throughout the day. I used to always focus on what I hadn't done, what I didn't get done that day, and would go to bed feeling like I hadn't accomplished anything, when if I had really just flipped it and looked at how much I had done, what I had spent my time on, I had done a lot. And I should, we're allowing myself to celebrate those wins. Again, just really not being conditioned to not focus on what we have and what we have done. Really that's a product of consumerism, is perpetuating us to always want more and what we don't have.
Yeah, we're always looking outside of ourselves for gratification of some sort. And like you said, that we often don't recognize all the wonderful things that we have going on in our lives already, the people in our lives, the blessings, and all those lovely little things that happen to us throughout the day, and the wins that we have. I mean, that's such a big thing. We're conditioned to just see all of the negative stuff and the stuff we haven't got, and it's just not something that breeds happiness in us. So that's leads me on nicely to the next thing I want to ask you. How does our childhood conditioning affect our happiness as adults? And why can we lose touch with our happiness over time?
Within that idea of continuing to look outside of ourselves, right? And want things that we don't have, want things that other people have, want things maybe that we're told that we want, but maybe we don't even really want that. We just see so many other people having it, and we say, oh, wow, those are people that I want to associate myself with, or those are people I look up to. If I want to be held in that high regard, I should have that thing too, whether it's a job or a house in a certain neighborhood or a group of friends or certain clothing, a certain style, whatever it may be. And so when we are very young, and it's interesting because I remember when I was in second or third grade, and I had created my own outfit for school. Yes, it did not match. The colors were crazy. I was wearing these shoes that I loved that were totally not in style, but I was so proud and I was so content in what I was wearing. And I walked to school, and I was just confident. I was proud of myself and just felt fully in me, right? And I remember coming to school, and there was a group of girls who were in my grade. And I remember as I was walking up to the school, they were pointing and laughing at me about my outfit. And in that moment, all I knew was I didn't want to feel that way ever again. So what I did was I wasn't myself anymore.
Yeah.
I stopped wearing what I wanted. I wore what was trendy. I wore things that wouldn't get me called out, wouldn't have me judged, wouldn't have people criticize me. And in that moment, I learned to not be myself. So for me, that was the first piece of that conditioning of don't be yourself, because you're not likable that way. So when we're children, we have all these little moments. And, I'd be curious if you could track back one for yourself, of these moments where we are conditioned to detach from ourselves. Either we don't trust ourselves, we doubt ourselves, we disconnect from ourselves. And especially as women, being taught to be quiet, to not be a distraction, to people please, to, be agreeable, to be small. And that conditioning, right, is at the core, is teaching us that we can't be our true selves to operate successfully in society, in this world. And so when we lose touch of ourselves, and for me, it was at a very, very early age. And now here I am, now 36, looking back and realizing how closely I've held on, like that became my identity, to not be myself and to search for any other means to be liked and to be accepted and all these things. So it took me 36 years to say, wait, why am I not being myself? And to track back to remembering that time in third grade where that was that point, that disconnection point for me. So that's why it's so hard for us to be happy, because we are conditioned to be separated from ourselves and our true knowing and really living that for ourselves. And not to say that we don't fluctuate. Sometimes when we get a new job, or we, are able to find that true purpose, find that true self, every time we see an ad, every time we're out in the world, people are continuing to challenge that self-worth that we have for ourselves. And so really maintaining that is such a key piece to maintaining contentment, maintaining purpose, maintaining fulfillment and happiness in your life. Because as soon as you get disconnected from that, that's when we are starting to live life not for ourselves.
That's really important, to having deeper meaning in our lives as well. If we're out there trying to be somebody else or live up to somebody else's idea, then we are always going to have that feeling of disconnection. And I can feel for that little girl who went out there all happy and in herself. I totally get that. And then it was just bam, not good enough. And it's so often the case. And the mean girls, they're just doing what they were taught to do as well. And that's kind of how it just plays out, this perpetuation, passing on from one to another. And it's just this huge societal idea that we're all buying into, that we've got to conform and that we've got to sort of stay under the radar so we don't get noticed. And really what the world needs of us is to stand up in our uniqueness and to offer our individual skills and talents and unique perspectives and gifts and ways of being. We're not all the same. We're not meant to be.
No, we are not. Do you just to riff for a second here, do you have a moment that you remember either at a young age or any time in your life where it was that moment where you felt like you wanted to disconnect from yourself to be accepted or to be closer to what society wanted you to be in that moment?
Yeah, it probably wasn't what society wanted me to be in this sense. When I tell you what it is, you'll understand. And it was quite a late thing. Like I was 13, but I was always quite a studious, bookish kind of girl. And one day I was up at the baseball park with a friend of mine, and we met a couple of guys. And the guy said to me, "Do you drink?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Do you smoke?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Do you smoke dope?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Boring." And this guy weirdly then became my boyfriend that I went out with for 2 years, and who taught me how to drink and smoke and do drugs, among other things. And and so I can look back on this point of my life as almost being a test for me, as a recapitulation from a previous lifetime, that this is one of those things that I needed to not fall into, and I failed at. And I see that as a test that I kind of fluffed and didn't do very well at, and that had a huge effect on the rest of my life, because that's what my life then became about. And I did that to fit in and to conform. And we had the mean girls at my school as well. And this kind of behavior that I then took up put me in their friendship, as opposed to being the nerdy, bookish girl, the studious one, the goody goody.
That's so interesting. And because I'm sure in the moment you felt like, oh, this is good. I'm now maybe being seen or being talked to by these girls that don't talk to anyone else, on campus, only people that they decide are worthy of talking to. And how did you feel your life was at that time? Did you feel like this is what I need to be doing? This is the right choice?
I don't know. I think I just thought that this was a way to not have the kind of bullying, fearful aspect. It was like just to join in with that current of energy that was going on. And just on a lighter note, I mean, the guy was really cute. And he was actually 12, this guy. He was younger than me.
Oh my gosh.
But he had older brothers. So he was falling under their influence, And, but it's so funny what this guy did. He really impressed me because he would eat colored freezies. You know what freezies are? Like those colored ice tubes.
Yes.
And
so
he would eat colored freezies and then puke up different colors. And I just thought, wow. So how to impress the girls, eh? Like, so that shows how stupid I was in the day that impressed me. But he was cute. And I guess I just wanted to kind of fit in. And I started doing these things. And I was with a girlfriend and she was keen to join in with me. But for both of us, it set off this long-term thing. I ended up as a drinker and I smoked dope for most of my adult life. I mean, I stopped that a long time ago now, but it had a powerful effect on me. That was a very pivotal moment in my life that if I hadn't, say, encountered him, it probably would have come up at some point because that was just all around and still is. It's a choice that most young people make at some point. But until that point, I was a goody-goody and, got really good grades and studied and read a lot and, led a quiet life. And then it all became about partying. And it's
so powerful to reflect on this, right? Our past experiences, because, for me, my experience felt negative at the time, but I have learned from that experience. It's part of my identity, but I embrace it and I honor it. And now I am allowed to find myself because it propelled me to disconnect. So like that allowed me to connect back again. And so I just, similar for you of just reflecting back, I think it's so powerful because we can really grow out of these and grow from these experiences.
Yeah. And I think sometimes lots of people just kind of tick along in their lives and maybe they drink a bit and they smoke a bit and they do some kind of activity that's just kind of moderate. And they don't really get to a stage where things become problematic enough for them that they change. They just kind of plateau. And unfortunately, sometimes it has to get messy and uncomfortable before we're willing to make a change.
Yes, 100%.
So
which
Amy,
feels uncomfortable in the time, right? But that is the beautiful part. It's almost you have to you shed everything, from those deep, dark, rock bottom moments and
exactly
create anew.
Yeah. So I would love it if you could share with us some tips and practices that we can use to tap into happiness and feel more fulfilled in life. I'm sure you've got a few tricks up your sleeve. So what would you like to talk to us about?
Yes. So first off, I do want to share on my Instagram every Monday, I share a happiness tip. And those are every week, a very simple tip that you can take and try out that week. And if it works for you, bring that into your practice, create that as a habit for yourself. This week was, for example, get curious around what your procrastination is telling you. A lot of the time we look at procrastination as just maybe we don't want to, or we say we don't have time. But I'm encouraging people to get a little more curious and asking, and I provide some questions of what could your procrastination be telling you that it's not an exciting task for you. Maybe, what are some ways you can make it more exciting? Or is it bringing up a fear of yours that you've been holding on to that you need to address? Or is it something that is a task that's not aligned and not going to ladder up to your bigger goal? So really getting curious, right, around this idea of procrastination and allowing it to see if it's telling us more than just, oh, yes, that's something I need to do that that I've been putting off. There might be something more there.
Nice.
Yes. And then beyond that, I mentioned the no buy challenge. And don't get me wrong, this is very much a challenge. It was so hard for me, but I bring it up because it really transformed my relationship to what I really need and what I'm being sold. So in that 6 months, I realized so many of the triggers that we get from ads, that we see this glimpse of a person looking happy, looking successful, and we see that they're holding a product. And normally when you look at an ad, if you stop yourself and look around, whether if you're on the street, in a shopping mall, in your car, and you can safely look around and see who else is driving, a lot of the time there is no one around you that looks like that person in the ad. So that is this subliminal cue that we get. Okay, there's this person in an ad, they look successful, they look happy, we don't look like them, and we don't have the thing that they're holding or wearing or using in the ad, right? And so the idea is that if we can have that thing that they're having, then we can have a slice of that happiness and that success, because we're never going to look like them, right? Even though we go to the gym so much, we don't eat as much as we need to be. We're, dye our hair, we change how we look, all the things. We're still so far away from that ideal person. So if we can have what they have, we can have a sliver and slice of that. So I really started to see how much that those subliminal cues were affecting me and affecting my purchasing. And so in that 6 months, I was able to really not only see that, really bring that to life, but understand buying that thing. How did that make me happy? What were my spending goals? What did I really want to be spending money on? How did I want to be investing, right? This idea of more intentional spending for your values, and investing in your future instead of spending money in the moment. So I just learned so much about that, in the financial realm, but then also just deeply connected to me, and allowing that space to ask myself, okay, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to be doing? Where do I want to be in a year? And allowing myself that space to really connect more deeply with myself so I could put action in place around that.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll share is just the last tip I'll share is remembering you're human. And in that idea of we're human, we are not perfect. We are evolving every day. Some things that you say or think today can evolve and change tomorrow. And we are on this journey, and it's an experiment. So it's so easy to get attached to an outcome. It's so easy to feel like life is happening to you, like you're a victim in this. And I just want to empower and remind people that we do have a choice, and we have a choice of how we perceive the world and life. We can see that life is happening for us, and see that there is, when maybe a hardship comes along, what is life telling us? What is that procrastination telling us? Maybe it's not all bad. What is this for? What is it? How can we use this to continue and evolve and expand in our experience? So really choosing that means to perceive the world in a different way, and just remembering that we are human and we can create what we want, and it doesn't have to be someone else's. It can be ours, and to go after that.
Nice. I like that. So Amy, what are you up to at the moment? Have you got any exciting offerings or events for us to check out?
I do. So I do one-on-one coaching. And you can see everything on my website is www.attainable-af.com. So my one-on-one coaching really, I work with clients on a very, very individual level. I really don't have a curriculum because I've realized over time working with people that a curriculum doesn't work because not everyone needs the same support, and not everyone is going through the same transformation, and not everyone, right? Happiness is you define that for yourself. So whatever that looks like for you, that's what we really create and build so you can step into your dream life. I have the happiness tips on Instagram. Like I mentioned, I release a new one every Monday, and my Instagram handle is at attainable_AF. We do have a virtual event coming up. The next one is on July 21st with a health certified coach, Yoko Kawashima. She's going to be talking about gut health and how it's linked to our well-being and overall happiness.
So I believe that you also have something really special to offer listeners of the podcast.
Yes. So I would love to offer, if anyone is curious about if your life could be more happy, if there's something that you are holding on to or not allowing yourself to really step into your happiness, I'd love to offer everyone on listening to this podcast an hour call with me. And during that call, we will really get clear on where you are in life right now and what that dream life may look like for you, and understanding what areas of your life you may need to be working on or targeting and transitioning through to create that dream life. What maybe small shifts and tweaks can you make to create that dream life for yourself today? Because it's very, very attainable. It's very possible. And a lot of the time it's very simple things or mindset shifts that we can shift to understand that we have so much more than we think we do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a lovely gift to offer people. So thanks very much for that. I might book one myself.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to have you. Yes.
So Amy, where can we find you online?
Yes. So my website is attainable-af.com. And I'm on Instagram at attainable_AF. And if you want to take advantage of that hour coaching session with me, that's a gift for the guests of this podcast. You can email me directly. My email is Amy, AMY, at attainable-af.com.
Fantastic. And I will put those links in the show notes as well so that people can contact you easily. Okay, Amy. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with us. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Janine. And I just love our conversations and love the synergies between our work. So I can't wait to have you on my podcast when I get it back up and running.
Oh, that'll be my pleasure. I look forward to that. Okay, Amy. Well, thanks very much. And hopefully I'll have you back on the show again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Janine.
Okay, my friend, that's all for today. Thank you so much for spending your time with me and the lovely Amy Powell. I really do appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening and for sharing this podcast and for subscribing and leaving me a lovely 5-star review on iTunes. Those things really help to get the podcast out there so that it can serve more people. If you have any questions or would like me to address a certain topic, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at info@theinspirationcloud.com. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.